And where we're going to go ahead and jump into this first is our heat check, where we check in with the hottest players around the league on the offensive side, the defensive side, and a special spotlight on the rookies. It's getting a little harder to pick out some of the rookies because the teams went from 32 to a lot smaller. So a little bit more difficult to kind of pick and choose on who's done really well or who kind of played poor too on our doghouse right after this. But let's go ahead and start on the offensive side. Drew, where did you go for your offense player of the week?
I think I went with the clear upset of the week, although I don't know if it was an upset for me because I picked this team to win, but I went for the Los Angeles Rams. I went with Kyren Williams,
Okay.
mostly just because, he had 90 total yards, he had a touchdown, but it feels like he's one of those running backs now that he's a closer. He's a closer in his role. Matt Stafford doesn't have to put the ball in the air too much. They
Yeah.
can really start handing the ball to him and grind it out. And when you get a game where you win 27-9, you got to salt away a lot of this game with safe, fundamental football. And when you could just turn around and hand the ball to a back like Kyren Williams and let him do his thing, he didn't have the most exciting statistics of the week, but like I said, the big upset knocking off Minnesota, huge, disgusting upset this week.
Yeah.
And Kyren Williams, he got one of my offensive player of the weeks, one of them.
Isn't it so funny the disparity from before the season started to right now where Kyren, you look at his numbers, you look at the season he had, and he was fantastic of back-to-back seasons. But before the season started, it was, oh, he's going to return punts and kicks, and we're not so sure about the role he's going to go ahead and take. And Blake Corum just came in, and obviously the it felt like he wasn't going to get the amount of carries that he actually got this year, and it's a lot different going into the playoffs this year. So yeah, so shout out to Kyron. I went with the running back as well. Derrick Henry, 26 carries, 186 yards, and 2 touchdowns. You bring a guy in to make an impact, not only throughout the season. This wasn't the Ravens' goal was to be this good through the season. It's getting into the playoffs and proving the haters wrong for Lamar Jackson, for this Ravens team. And you bring in a support system like Derrick Henry, and even early on in the season, he wasn't getting a whole lot of carries, especially around the goal line. It was kind of a weird situation. And it was, oh, well, we didn't bring Derrick Henry in to carry the ball 30, 40 times a game for us. And then he ends up getting close to about 25 carries a game throughout the year, it feels like. And then in the playoffs, 26 carries and 186 yards. So he's doing what he was brought in to do in the most important time. Now they just have to continue on into Buffalo doing that. So he gets my
Yeah,
offensive player.
there's definitely some offensive player of the year consideration. There was a lot of excellent performances this year, but the thing about Derrick Henry in the matchup with Lamar Jackson, thinking about Derrick Henry wanting to line up 5 to 7 yards deep in the backfield and Lamar wanting to be in the pistol and the offset formation a lot,
Right.
and just trying to figure out how they were going to mesh that. And Derrick Henry does want to carry the ball 30 times because he wants to wear this defense down. You and me have talked about it so many times. You go into a halftime of a Tennessee Titans game and Derrick Henry has 17 carries for 31 yards, but then he'll bust 2 60-yard carries back to back. And
Yep.
that's just what Derrick Henry does. So it is important to give him those carries. And to be honest with you, I'm going to be bullish on my division round picks later on. We're going to talk about their game. I'm going to be bullish on my guy and stick there, but holy shit, do the Ravens scare the crap out of me right now. I don't have an up to date, they don't. The one thing about doing this on a Wednesday or a Tuesday instead of later in the week is we don't have the full injury reports. We don't have a
Right.
complete answer on Zay Flowers, but the Baltimore Ravens are a scary team right now.
Absolutely. Was there anyone that you wanted to go ahead and shout out before we moved on?
I did want to shout out Joe Mixon just because I did not expect the Houston Texans to win this game and they came out and smashed the Chargers.
Yeah.
And Joe Mixon, again, same thing with the Rams. He's just a closer. CJ Stroud has not had a good year this year by his last year standards.
Yeah,
Again,
for
they
sure.
won a bunch of games during the playoffs. I'm not going to be too critical because he played good quarterback this year, but building on last year, he didn't quite do that. And they brought in a running back in Joe Mixon who has been fantastic this year
Yeah.
when he's been healthy, and he had a huge performance. He had 119 total yards and a touchdown. And again, just that closer mentality where when you got to salt the game away, and I know the Texans beat the shit out of the Chargers, but when you got to salt the game away and you can give 5, 10, 15 carries to a running back that's going to hold on to the football and get you 45 yards per carry, I just felt like There were bigger performances this year, but those were two super important performances for their team. And the performances we're going to have to see this week if those teams want to continue to move on.
Absolutely. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, my guy I went with was also from the Texans. Defensive side, Derrick Stingley, 4 tackles, 5 pass deflections, and 2 interceptions. First team All Pro selection for the NFL, and then goes into the week and absolutely shows up and proves on why he is that good. Obviously, not such a great performance from Justin Herbert. Some also not 100% his fault as well. But Derek Stingley has been locked down all year. I think his passer rating allowed was 3.2 for the game. And again, 5 pass deflections and 2 interceptions on the day as well is nothing to scoff at. So even with some of the performances we had from a couple of edge rushers on, some of the other teams, even with that, I think Stingley definitely deserves it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. That's who I had as my number one. I did have an honorable mention. I honestly think that we could have just taken the whole Los Angeles Rams defense and just put them in here.
Jesus
Um,
Christ. Yeah.
Kamari Lassiter had a big game, but I wanted to shout out just because I don't think I mentioned him on the podcast this year. I just want to talk about Jordan Davis. He's one of those players for Philly right now where he's not super gaudy on his
Yeah.
actual counting statistics. If you go to ESPN's box score, but he's got like a 65% win rate right now, and all the advanced statistics absolutely love this man. And you basically draft a guy, you stick him in the middle of your defense, and now he's there for the next 10 years. And that's just fantastic production.
Yeah.
But then again, shout out to the Los Angeles Rams defense. The whole defense deserves defensive player of the week, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Drew and I have talked about this, I feel like a couple of times in the past couple of weeks about how dominant the Rams organization has been at drafting those guys. Just looking at the past 3 years in drafts, you're looking at Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, Kobe Turner, Byron Young. Those are all your significant defensive linemen right there. But then on top of that, on the other side of the ball, you have Kyren Williams, Puka Nakua, Steve Avili, Bo Limmer, who has also started games for them. On the defensive backside, Kobe Durant, Quentin Lakin, Cam Kinchins, who was just drafted as well. So just their drafts in the last 3 years has been absolutely incredible, and the defensive line has been no exception. That has been the most impactful draftees out of anyone in the league in the last 3 years. That line is insane, and they're really young. Probably not gonna be able to stick all together for their entire career because all those guys are gonna want a whole lot of money, but they should definitely enjoy it while it lasts. So, Rams looking to make a run while those guys are young for sure. Looking at now our top 3 rookie performances from the wild card weekend. Drew, you can go ahead and start us off with this one. Where did you go? Couple of
You
obvious
know
ones.
where I went. I mean, I went with my boy, Jaden.
Yeah,
He
definitely.
did the damn thing. I don't think either of us thought they were gonna. Did you pick the Bucks last week?
No, I picked the Commanders.
Did you pick the Commanders? I
Mhm.
picked the Bucks. I didn't think they were gonna pull it off. I thought Baker Mayfield and his effort mentality. And early on, Mike Evans was having his way with that defense. I was,
Yeah,
a little nervous. Obviously, I wanted Jaden to move on.
right.
Um, we got 300 total yards, 2 touchdowns, and he only took 1 sack. That I think that's obviously huge in a playoff game, not to have those negative plays, no interceptions, no fumbles, just an overall masterful performance from your should be rookie of the year this year. Jaden plays with a poise that is unlike first round rookie quarterbacks. He plays with the poise of a CJ Stroud from last year. He plays with the poise of a first year Andrew Luck when those guys came in. Not
Sure.
comparing the
Yeah.
players and their play styles, but just at this point, his his accuracy and his decision making and the things that he does on the football field, even going back to a couple weeks ago, he had a shootout with the Falcons
Yeah.
and Michael Penix and just going back and forth. And it just I feel like this is probably maybe the 10th or 12th time we mentioned him on this podcast in
It
some
feels
type
like
of
every
weekly
week, dude.
award episode. I I feel like he's been offensive player of the week once or twice for us, not just
Yeah,
rookie of
definitely.
the week. So shout out to Quinion. Quinion. Whoops. Just spoiled another one. Shout out to Jaden Daniels. He is my number one player of the week.
Obviously, I had Jaden written down as well, but let's go with Vlad. Obviously, setting the rookie yards in a single playoff game record for this past week. His performance against the against the Texans. I mean that catch keeping his balance and then showing how fast he is, right? I mean, I feel like with a lot of those type of slot receivers, they're shifty, they're sneakily athletic. Yeah, those type of words are usually brought up to describe guys like Lad McConkey. But don't forget, this guy ran a 4.340. He's very, very fast. And I think he reminded everyone immediately on how fast he really is on that run. But yeah, 9 receptions, 197 yards, and a touchdown. Lad's been fantastic all year, man. And it sucks that his run ends now with the Chargers losing, but it's a good way to cap it off.
He's also 6 feet tall, so don't try to make him Cole Beasley, you know what I
Yep.
mean? Like, don't
Right.
try to stick him in there. He's 6 foot tall. I think he weighed in under 200 at the combine, but by the time, he gets some weight on his body, he's probably gonna be 205, 208.
Yep.
That's a locomotive when he gets going, and
Mhm.
probably a player that's gonna remain near and dear to my heart for a very, very long time. Yeah, shout out to him for
Yeah.
certain.
Absolutely. You want to go in and shout out the next guy that you already shouted out?
Yeah, Quinyon Mitchell for the
Yeah.
for the Eagles, and I'm gonna do a pairing with him and his running mate Cooper DeJean. They've been fantastic all year. They continue to be fantastic. It looks like Green Bay, the Packers rolled into Philadelphia and they started Dak Prescott at quarterback instead of Jordan Love. I don't know what the hell that performance was, but yeah, I mean, it's just been all year for them.
Yeah.
And we're gonna get into the rookie rankings here soon, and it's gonna be
I'm
interesting to
so
see.
excited.
And a lot of these things, a lot of these players, I really had to get into PFF and I really had to look at snap counts and take snap counts into consideration
Sure.
because
Right.
I was like, you know what? If these two players are equal, but one has played 300 more snaps than the other, I'm giving it to the guy that's been on the field more.
Yeah.
But
I like that.
Quinyon Mitchell been on the field the entire season. He had his ups and downs early, but Philadelphia has put themselves in a place to get to the Super Bowl this year. And you and me talked in the offseason. The Eagles' biggest problem was their secondary was trash. And they
Yep.
went out and they fixed it. They brought in Lord Fangio. He's doing the damn thing. And
They
shout out to
drafted
those
the
two.
Yeah, they drafted the top 2 rookies, right? I mean, it's funny that we're they're people wanna praise, right, the GM, "Oh, how he does it again, he does it again." Let's not act like Quinyon Mitchell wasn't, like, the number 1 ranked corner on most people's board, and let's not act like Cooper DeJean was, like, the number 2 ranked player on or corner ranked on people's boards. Let's not act like that. The dude slipped because of not knowing where to play him. Is he a safety? Is he a slot corner? Is he an outside corner? Where is he at? It's just play the fucking guy everywhere. He's a slot corner right now, but the dude can legitimately play everywhere. He obviously still has his issues, but everything that he was scouted to be, a sound tackler, great in the slot, that's exactly the role he plays, and he plays it extremely well. We see it. He's what, the third ranked corner by PFF standard? Now he's given up more receptions than Quinyon, even though Quinyon's played all year. But he's been fantastic still up to this point. So Jaden and Quinyon were both on my list, but I'm going to go and shout out the last guy that I have on here. Did you see the defensive rookie of the year rumbling, tumbling, picking up that fumble in for a touchdown for LA? Jared Verse, 2 tackles. That's it. But he did pick up the fumble recovery and ran that in for a touchdown. So shout out to him, man. Jared's been awesome all year. A big fan of him and everything he's been doing. Shout out to us for being right about Jared Verse. We're definitely again going to talk about these rookies here pretty soon and where we rank a lot of these guys. But yeah, Jared was my last guy that I wanted to shout out
Spoiler alert, Dallas Turner is not on my list anywhere. I
here.
think
No.
I think if we'd gone to top 50 rookies, he may not have made my list.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Absolutely.
um the one more, just because I've kind of paired those two guys up. The last one I just wanted to talk about. His team did not take a dub this year in the playoffs, but Bo Nix has been incredible all year. He There is a lot for Denver Broncos fans to be excited about. And he was incredible. This quarterback class was incredible. Hopefully JJ McCarthy, the starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings next year, can round it all out.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, moving off of the heat check this week, everyone around here can't be winners. Someone around here has to be a loser. And when you're a loser around here, around the 2020 podcast, you go to one place and you go to one place only, and that's the Doghouse. Essentially, what the Doghouse is for us, if you're a new watcher or listener, is we place a team, players, fans, GMs, anyone can be in the Doghouse. It's funny because I think we've expanded to dog motels, hotels. I mean, we're skyscrapers,
Resorts.
resorts. Yeah, all inclusive. It's basically Cancun at this point for the players. So, Doghouse of the week, Drew. Where did you go ahead and start off with? How many? Who do you have in here? How many people do you have in here? Because I'm real curious.
This week I only got 2. I got a head
Okay.
coach and I got a quarterback. What do you
Okay.
got?
I have quarterbacks.
Okay, well then, you know what? Can you start with one of your quarterbacks because I feel like we might piggyback off of each other a little bit. And so before I reveal, why don't you give me your number one quarterback in the doghouse this week?
So I didn't have a specific quarterback written down. Essentially, what all I wrote down was quarterbacks who lost this week. Every quarterback who lost this week was obviously, I think, goes in the doghouse, and it's every single one except for Bo Nix. I think we take Bo Nix and we set him to the side because he does not go in the doghouse, and it has nothing to do really with his performance. Even though I don't blame him at all, it's the future of Bo Nix is not in question. Um, why some of these other quarterbacks go in is Justin Herbert decided to play his worst game of the entire year on the most important weekend of the entire year. Obviously, again, some of that was not his fault, especially in the first half. You and I were texting back and forth. Justin was on point. He was on target. He was all about it. As it got later into the game, I think a lot of things went wrong for him. But 4 interceptions on the day when the entire year he had 3 interceptions is not a good look. Pittsburgh lost. So Russell Wilson going in the doghouse. His clarity on his entire season from Justin Fields to then switching over to Russell Wilson. You and I, saying, "Hey, Justin's been winning. Why do you switch over?" And then Russell Wilson playing really, really well, and you going, "Hey, Mike Tomlin was right. Fuck it." And then playing abysmal the last couple of weeks, and then playing abysmal again. I don't know where he's going to sign, what his role is in the league. So, doghouse of the week, definitely he goes in there as well because I'm not sure what the clarity of where he's going to sign now, especially with a performance like this. If he went out and was at least competitive with Baltimore in a wild card weekend against a division opponent, you could have an argument that he might have a starting job somewhere. Now I'm not so sure. Man, Sam Darnold, another not good performance. Back to back, piss poor performances. You go from potentially having the 1 seed, pissing and squandering that away, not playing well at all, to then in back to back weeks playing again abysmal, piss poor, and pissing and squandering away a game against the LA Rams, who are a very talented team. But at the end of the day, you won 14 games. Like what? This is the conversation that we're having right now. And now I don't. We went from what is Sam Darnold going to do? What are we going to do with him? Is he going to get the Baker Mayfield contract and stay in, and JJ McCarthy sit behind? Is there going to be a second year out for Minnesota just in case Sam plays well too? Hey, JJ's probably the starter next year because these last final 2 weeks that he's played. We went from not questioning to he's out the door. I'm not gonna put Baker in the doghouse as well. I'm gonna set that one to the side. I don't have any questions or comments about Baker. I know with the handoff stuff, I'm not really gonna talk about it too much. And then clarity on Jordan Love. A lot of Packer fans obviously riding high at the end of last year. The second half of the season, Jordan Love was really, really, really good going into the playoffs, stomping the Cowboys, and then should have won against the 49ers. Did not because of some decisions made by Jordan Love up and down throughout the season, big time gunslinger type mentality for Jordan Love, but still the performance is really wavering. He wasn't even for consideration for either one of us for offensive player of the week all year. And now we're sitting here wondering what the clarity is on Jordan Love after signing a $220 million contract. He's obviously going to be the starter next year, but you definitely have to put some question marks on a couple of things with his performances throughout the year and his performance against Philly as well. So again, just doghouse as a whole, quarterbacks on the losing side, take out Baker, take out Bo, and then the rest of them. It's the clarity on the future for those quarterbacks. Or unfortunately, Justin's just in there because he threw 4 picks when he threw 3 all year. So that's my doghouse.
Yeah, if it's me, I'm taking the question marks off of Jordan Love just because that dude's been injured all year,
Right.
4 or 5 different injuries, and he's been battling a lot of things. And then you go into this game and your number one superstar, fantastic wide receiver, Christian Watson's not available.
Okay.
And there's some other injuries.
Right.
I got 2 in my doghouse. I want to talk about my boy Herbie first. I want to talk about Justin
Yeah.
Herbert. You and me were talking back and forth um, about the fact that they need Matter of fact, you and me say, this dude needs a tight end. He needs a security blanket tight end. I send that text and I look up at the TV, and then the ball bounces off his tight end's hands into the defenders for an interception.
Yep.
But the reason why I decided to single Justin Herbert out is because there's certain quarterbacks that we talk about when they can't get it done on the big stage. And that's Lamar Jackson. We talk about that a lot. Justin Herbert in 2022, you'll remember this game because I think they were up 28-0 against the that junk ass team down in Jacksonville. And
Yeah.
he let Trevor Lawrence come all the way back on him and beat him in that game. A 58% completion rating in that game. And then in this game, a 43% completion rating. Now, we can look at this if you want to, that the Chargers just over, exceeded what they were supposed to do. But I
Right.
looked at my dad, who is a lifelong Chargers fan, and got him to watch the football game with me. And as a guy who probably has watched maybe 3 football games this year, every single time they needed a play, every time they needed a third down, every time they needed something, they were targeting Quentin Johnson because that's your double, triple stacking lad, and you have
Yeah.
no other workable threat on that field. They got to get rid of that dude. That dude's a freaking bum.
Yeah.
He is just not the answer. And, Mike Evans wasn't the answer either. And I'm not saying that keeping Keenan Allen around would have been the answer, but you got Khalil Mack going into free agency. Derwin James is getting older. Joey Bosa is getting older. This team needs a little bit of some work in the offseason, and they got to get some help for Justin Herbert because that performance was just dreadful. 4
Sure.
interceptions when you throw 3 all year is just absolutely, absolutely terrible. Now,
Yep.
2 of those interceptions are in, you're just hucking it down the field. I get it.
Yeah.
My other doghouse, and you mentioned the quarterback, this head coach's quarterback, but I'm going to put Kevin O'Connell in the doghouse
Okay.
because I'm watching this game and I'm watching these play calls and I'm watching Sam Darnold get sacked after sacked after sacked. There was more sacks in that game than you see in a whorehouse in Nevada, my dog. Like it just was coming from everywhere. And in 2022, Kevin O'Connell, his Vikings make the playoffs.
Yeah.
They won 13 games in 2022. Do you remember who they lost to in 2022?
I don't.
The New York Giants.
Oh,
And
that's right.
Daniel
Daniel
Jones
Jones.
had 380 total yards and 2
Yep.
touchdowns with Saquon Barkley and nothing on that squad.
Yeah.
And you couldn't get it done in 2022 with a Justin Jefferson, an Adam Thielen, a KJ Osborne, a Dalvin Cook. And now fast forward to 2024, you win 14 games. And instead of writing down all the things that I thought happened in this game, I just wrote destroyed. You get absolutely destroyed, dude.
Yep.
Like, you got to help your quarterback out. You can't tell me on a team that has Justin Jefferson and you got, now I'm going to blank on the running mate who's a super speedster also.
Jordan
You,
Addison.
thank you, Addison. Jeez. I know what college you went to, though. This isn't the performance. The defense was so good all year, and you
Yeah.
just come out and fall flat on your face.
Sure.
But there's a reason I picked the Rams, man. You got Sean McVay is lethal at making these in-game decisions,
Right.
in-game adjustments. He's so good at that. You got a Super Bowl winning quarterback in Matt Stafford. You got an excellent defense. And frankly, I'd be a little nervous if I was Philly. Now, I'm not saying I'm picking LA here, but I would be a little nervous. So Kevin O'Connell, you go into my doghouse. And then I am reserving a room. I haven't put this man in the doghouse yet, but I have reserved a room. I've reserved a suite. Because I think that Jerry Jones has spent more time filming spots in TV shows, which was excellent, by the way. Landman, it's an amazing show. But I got it red flag, man. And I know you're the resident Cowboys expert, but this Mike McCarthy thing And now Dion's talking about how Jerry called him. And now we're hearing Jason
Jason
Witten,
Witten. I'm gonna
and
shoot
we're
myself in
hearing
the fucking face.
we're hearing Kellen Moore, and your first scheduled interview is Robert Saleh. I like Robert Saleh. I do. But how can you bring in a defensive minded head coach? Who's going to be that guy's offensive coordinator? Kellen Moore? That's what you're going to do? You're going to do this again because you hired Mike McCarthy and you told him Kellen Moore's your offensive coordinator. I don't care. And then he
Yep.
sucked. And so Mike McCarthy fired him. And then Dak's an MVP candidate the next year.
Yep.
And then Dak is injured all year. And you're like, yeah, we're not going to bring this guy back. And so do you know who interviews him first? Chicago.
Yep.
Chicago's like, holy shit, this guy's been kicking our ass for years. Let's bring him on in for an interview. So Jerry's not in there yet, but he has
Yep.
a reservation. Okay.
I mean, yeah.
He may not show up, but he has a reservation right now.
I mean, especially the fact that waiting to let Mike McCarthy go and not scheduling any interviews, wanting to schedule any interviews, or maybe it slipped his mind because he's so fucking old, past the deadline. So now you can't schedule guy like stuff with Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, but like any of the major names that have been brought up this year. Like you can't interview those guys yet. Now you have to wait, and you waited and you waited and you waited. And now this is the consequences that we're kind of running into. Ben Johnson's already been interviewing. He may already want a specific job. He might already like certain things about other places. And now you're coming in second fiddle to the rest of the people that already called for for an interview. Like it doesn't look good. It's piss poor. The Jason Witten thing is just I hate it. The Kellen Moore name drops. I hate it. I just hate it. It's just super disappointing, and it's a constant cycle of hate and regret and my life decisions on picking certain teams. And yeah, it definitely sucks. So, but ride or die, this is where I'm at today. Let's go ahead and move off of this before we get too depressed.